I think one of the things that let me start over again. One of the things that I think I will do is, I think, do a film history on wokeness in film. And, wokeness in film really kind of started in the late 80s, more the 90s is when we saw wokeness in film. Now they say it's all over the goddamn place, and that might be true. Oh, geez Louise. 5 people are waiting. That's not that many, by the way. But DeSantis, I believe, today signed the Stop the Woke Act, and it's basically fighting. Let me just, geez, get your face out of there. I'm going to put this on my screen real quick. And to the screen, here we go. It's DeSantis introduces Stop the Woke Act to fight critical race theory in Florida. Florida Republican Governor DeSantis introduces a new bill on Wednesday opposing the teaching of critical race theory in Florida's K through 12 classroom. DeSantis announced plans regarding the Stop the Woke Act. Our legislation will defend any money for K through 12 going to CTR consultants. DeSantis says no taxpayer dollars should be used to teach our kids to hate our country and hate one another. Now, they've had a lot of woke kind of stuff over the years. I think it kind of gained strength with Oprah. She would have guests on like Jane Elliott, who is kind of like a Barbara D'Angelo, but perhaps. And Dennis is asking a question, and my favorite topic, yeah. Well, it's actually a woke show about wokeness. And wokeness also involves trans people as well. Now, Joey, you worked a little bit in the educational field. Would you say that there is a lot of wokeness in, did you see a lot of woke type of doctrination? Did you observe that?
20 years, Brian, 20 years in that field. And it was always kind of woke. From it hasn't changed a whole lot other than it's kind of like they got the green light to go ahead and start getting loud. And they were so misguided on so many levels that it truly became very frustrating. Every meeting I had, every sort of encounter I had with administration or teachers, whole lot of wokeness. And they think they're doing the right thing, I think, but yeah, it's rooted in a whole lot of BS.
Well, I'm looking here on Twitter, and this is the New York Post. And please post one school K through 12 that actually teaches CRT. One of the things they do is they say it's only a college level course and that CRT is not being taught. And this person called non-compliant Jonathan Sherry, he says, left. CRT is not being taught in schools, right? Introduces law to ban CRT, left. How dare you? So this gentleman said, please post a one school K through 12 that actually teaches CRT in the classroom. I'll wait. So this is Misty, a little picture of Gumby. And Sophie Buckingham says, "You don't understand. You don't understand. We don't teach CRT. We teach everything using CRT. This is a very, very bad thing. Saying we don't teach it, it won't help. We need to fight this, but denying it won't help." History is history. Unfortunately, we need to learn from the past mistakes so we can be better. Sweep things under the rug, and they'll keep coming up. It's uncomfortable, but I think people are actually making it worse by fighting history. And then he has a little thing there. Teaching the subject of the Holocaust in the Nazi era is mandatory in German schools. And in addition to the classroom curriculum, almost all students have either visited a concentration camp or a Holocaust memorial museum. And Sam Venenze says, if CRT is teaching history as it was, what is wrong with that? And then Bill Bixby says, it's called history. The DOC changed after the Civil War, like they want it done again. I don't understand that. Maybe it was my reading of it. And someone said, this is time of essence. My mom is a teacher. She has never heard of CRT, and she doesn't even teach race at all. Y'all are fighting against a fake threat. It's not real. It's a stand-in for political issues and allows prominent conservatives to raise money. It's manufactured outrage. And then Bill Bixby says, every couple of years, they need a boogeyman. I'm guaranteeing you, your mom has been faced with quotes from Ibram Kendi during a PhD session on equity and inclusion. Maybe she's turning PhD out because it's done over Zoom, but she has certainly been presented with CRT from her board. Okay. I don't know if that made any sense what I was saying, Joey. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, it was a little choppy.
Thank you. I am choppy. Sorry, I suck. Oh man.
I mean, they're just talking about critical race theory and how it didn't work and how it's a disaster in their situations, I think is what they were saying, right?
Yeah, and then there is kind of they're either gaslighting or willfully ignorant, or it's basically not true that CRT is not being taught. But they say that there are forms of CRT being taught in the classroom. And I kind of believe that there are these kinds of things being, not like exact CRT, but there are probably smidgens of CRT being taught in the classroom, and certain types of indoctrination may be being taught in the classroom. And from my understanding, the definition of CRT is that racism defines just about everything in American life, legal, structurally, and that's, I think, the main component Could be wrong on that. I could be completely wrong. And there are many different, many people have different, what's another word for definitions? Or many people define CRT in different ways, just as it seems like many people define racism in many different kinds of ways. People seem to be moving the goalpost further and further. Could be wrong on that. But Dennis said woke is just a new label. And it was a label by the left. And then when the right started using it and kind of using it against them, it became, I guess, kind of a new label. And the left does not like using the word woke anymore, because they know it sounds stupid. And there are some things that perhaps the right sounds where it sounds.
Well, that's just it. Woke implies maybe some level of intelligence, but knowledge far outdoes woke or being awake. So, people are happy to accept some sort of new label to slap over their own faces, I guess. The woke seem to be proud of it and will exclaim it, but like I said, it doesn't match with true knowledge. It'll die out eventually, says the master of rope.
Yeah, maybe rope will die out eventually. Maybe he'll be gone. But I wanted to just say that humanity or people are not just driven by intellect alone. I had something, and I'm not going to say what it is. I might say what it is off the air with Joe, but something that really kind of jarred me awake. And I might say it like later. What did that? Later on, like a couple of years down the line.
Say it.
No, I won't. I might say it in private chat, but I'm not gonna.
Oh, come on, are you gonna offend somebody, or is it just? Oh, it's just an unusual take. Okay,
it's an unusual take. I just don't want to, but sometimes a jarring experience will really kind of awaken you, where you have to move and you really have to think on your feet, and you have to hustle. And sometimes struggle and poverty do that. And I think sometimes there is a need to even invent a struggle, because that does put you on your feet. When you're struggling and you're really surviving, that's when you are actually living. When you are when you have to struggle for that meal and stuff, you're thinking, and you're just in a whole other element. And when you put yourself in a struggle, sometimes it does make you feel more alive. So there's a need for that. It fits an ego need, but it also, to a point, it makes you alive when you and you put, it's kind of a fake struggle because it's not real. Like, Joe, I imagine when you went to Korea to teach, you probably felt to a degree kind of alive. I'm in a new country, and I have, you put yourself in a situation where you have to kind of survive. And to a degree, I imagine that you did feel alive more when you did something like that. Your brain was working in a different way. I could be wrong, but I'll let you explain that.
Sure, I didn't have a bad day when I was there, and it's because I had a whole clean slate to work from. Nothing was stressful to me. It was an amazing year as far as that goes. Um, I tried to parlay that when I came back, but children here in America, it was just like a different ball game when I got back. Um, so that was a real learning lesson, and the dread, the stress, everything came back pretty much simultaneously the moment I got back and got back into my work routine and all that. But certainly, yeah, getting out of here and seeing a new country or a new place, a new environment, not even a new country, just a new environment altogether, really does wonders for that.
Now, I imagine the kids are far more disciplined in Korea than they are here in America, in the States.
Sure, their number one priority is to learn English and get the hell out of there. That's why, again, Koreans here in America, what you are seeing here in America is not a true representation of the Koreans in Korea, though. They what happens eventually is that the best of the so-called best will get selected, and those are the ones that end up coming here and living here, and getting that sort of getting that support behind them. It's pretty an interesting thing, but it's not great as far as what the American perceptions are of Koreans. Not accurate at all. They've got their share of everything we've got here, and 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 then some. But I think here we only see like we tend to associate Koreans as being very bright or this or that. But yeah, it's pretty. That's another interesting sociological thing. I think people discount.
Well, um, now my mother, um, when she went into the Peace Corps, first she spent time in Morocco, and I think she did speak at the time kind of broken French, not fluid French, but she became kind of a French speaker when she was in Morocco. And it was after her brother had passed away. And she said, I kind of remember her saying, she really enjoyed her time at the Peace Corps. And it was after a really traumatic event. And she just threw herself in to the whole experience. And she just lived overseas for quite some time after her brother passed away. And she became kind of I don't want to say a gypsy, but she just, traveled a lot of time throughout Europe. And when my father was in Germany, uh, after he was just discharged from the Air Force, he stayed there and he sold cars, I believe, to American GIs. And I believe he sold cars to American GIs who were going back to the States. And it's quite an experience to live outside the country, and you get a completely different perspective on how other people live. And my father would tell me that the standard of living in Europe, I mean, at that time, this was the late 1960s and 19, I think maybe 1970s when he left, but he said, it's just not comparable to the United States. I mean, there were apartments that had communal showers, and you didn't own your own house or your home. That was not that's more of an American thing. Owning
But that's the newest trend, though. That's why corporations are coming in and buying up. Basically, the feds are going to end up being the lender and buyer of last resort. They're going to have all of it. They just keep picking up more and more debt over time, and they're just and the corporate thing. You experienced that with your previous house. I was bought up by a corporation. I mean, that's what they come in and pay cash. And when you hear that, when people say, "Oh yeah, people are just coming in and buying homes with cash," it's not. Usually, it's not individuals; it's corporations coming in and buying those up. And I think the end game is so that the corporations own all of it, or the government owns all of the property, and people will we will have a society where we don't own anything.
Yeah, because right now we, a lot of people like owning a home. It's only the select few in West Los Angeles that can own a home, and that's going to be for the rest of America. And the next thing you're not going to be able to own is a car. Uh, there will be driverless cars sooner or later. Maybe, who knows? Maybe 10, 15 years from now. You'll have a car pick
Yeah, I
you.
think we're at the beginning of the end of that too.
Yeah, you'll have a car pick you up and drive you, and the times of driving, going out for a drive on your own, and having your own automobile, that will only be for the very wealthy. All the rest of Americans will basically be, you know, having having automobiles pick them up, driverless cars, and they will pick you up and send you to your destination.
And I've heard that the reason for that is if you take all of the cars that are not even on the road, just cars that are built and have all the mechanics and can probably be the ones that are older can be refurbished. But I've heard that there are enough cars to give everybody a car in the country, everybody in the world, give them a car, and they can renew that car every 4 or 5 years. I forgot what it was, but I mean that's just how many vehicles are that are not even in use. So I think we've reached that, I guess, that terminal point where we really don't need a car market anymore. Just start dispersing them and dealing with it the way you're explaining it.
Yeah, I mean, will technology, and like I said, I mean, in some ways, technology makes us work less, but are we healthier when we work less? I mean, the paraplegic can't do anything. Do we want to be like that? I mean, do we want to lay in bed, be bedridden? That's a horrible way of life. But things kind of look better, and the grass is always greener on the other side. And sometimes we don't even compare. I ask people all the time when they talk about having a country of justice and doing things correctly. I One of the questions I ask them is, can you show me in practice a nation that basically does justice the way you think should be done, does policing the way you think it should be done? Is there something that we can see? Because when you play the game, like when you play a sport, sometimes you look at other teams play and how they play, and maybe want to mimic some of those behaviors, and they always say no. Now, when you were in Korea, Joe, did you ever have problems with with law enforcement?
Oh no. No.
Were there bars or restaurants that didn't like Westerners?
So I have told this story before, but when I first got there, I made a lot of friends, and I went out one night with a big group of Korean men. Maybe one or two Westerners were there, probably 12 to 15 of us sitting in a circle around this table. And it's still very, I don't know if it's faded out since, but this is like 20 years ago when I was there. Um, it was still very much part of the culture to smoke. So we were all kind of sitting around smoking a cigarette. And at this restaurant, the ashtrays where you butt out your cigarette into, the ashtray, if some of them had a picture of George Bush's face, like right where you would snuff it out. And I explained to the table that I held it up and I was like, this is really disrespectful, for a Westerner to see this, even, and then, of course, oh, you like Bush, and no, it's not about that. I can't stand Bush, never liked him, but just the principle of snuffing that's out in, right on our president's face, it's disrespectful, and so, yeah, I mean, there were things like there were some stores with signs in front, no Westerners, or no Americans, no Westerners was not it. It was no Americans, and there was some of that, but very little. It was there, but there, I was there in 2002, so there was a lot going on in the world at that time, and that's what I saw there. That was about the extent of it.
Now, I've heard that there's more of that in Japan where they say no Westerners.
You don't feel that as a traveler though. That's a huge part of their economy is tourism. So when you're there just touring around, it's a great place. And all the teachers I met that taught English there or had jobs there. I knew some people that worked in toy manufacturing in Japan, and yeah, there was none of that. It is a good place for commerce, but I don't know as far as holding traditional values and all that stuff. Yeah, it could be a pretty hard place to be there for any extended period of time. But unless you enjoy their culture and want to get immersed in that, then it's again a great place. So I never really felt that there.
Do American school, I mean, like, do Koreans, do the Korean students really, do they outwork the American students as far as work ethic is concerned?
Yeah, it's not make believe. These kids work. It was not uncommon to see buses dropping off kids from school with their backpacks still on in at night, 7, 8 p.m. So yeah, absolutely. Part of it's the discipline from the parents and the teachers that still command that respect, but it's also just, you know, kids were interested in learning. I don't know if that sense was beaten into them or how it was instilled in them. I don't know if that's a natural instinct, but to sit down at a table, open a textbook and start learning, but they sure do it.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how we instill, how does one instill a work ethic in a lazy child?
boundaries are the number one thing. Saying no. I know a lot of parents now who I've met in the last 20 years who go by that never say no philosophy, and it's so ridiculous. And so here you have a child who gets what they want unconditionally, and that is there's helicopter parenting. I just heard a story today. It was a little wet. Somebody I know that works at school out here was telling me a story about how one teacher scolded 5 kids and prevented them from going out into the field because it was a little bit wet. So it's like kids don't even get an opportunity to get dirty. I mean, I used to love the rain to go get filthy, just get my clothes completely just wet and dirtied up, just playing around in the rain. But even that has some sort of, it's like, oh, you can't do that. Well, why not? They're kids, and kids should be going out and playing in that mess. But uh, there's a lot of it starts with the bizarre curriculums, and then the bizarre parenting, and all other forms of methods of support in between. They're just so overprotective, and kids these days will not suffer the same broken bones I suffered. They won't come home filthy, dirty like the way I did. They're just highly protected. And that's kind of a sad thing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, our schools are still done by agricultural calendars, and back in the day, man, kids had to work on the farm, and kids used to have after school they had a job, and I know in the South kids still work after school, but in the larger cities, I don't think that's as commonplace anymore, and it's kind of sad because even though they're not as good, they kind of learn. You learn from a job sometimes more than school. You learn that, like, hey, in school they don't really care whether you're there or not, but at a job they care that you're gonna, that you're gonna be there or you're not gonna be there. If you're a man short, it's kind of sucky, and I don't think kids really have the same. I think they're losing more and more of the work ethic, and I think also people are becoming far less mechanically inclined the way they used to. I remember I used to see a lot more people working on their cars back in the day, and I don't see that as much anymore. I don't know if you see the same thing, Joe, that people don't work on their cars.
First of all, what's up to everybody that's listening right now? I know there's at least 2 of you. Welcome to Transparency and Merit. What I see now is a lot of kids with friggin' Legos. Legos has that has sparked the engineering child's mind. I guess that's what they do. Safe, controlled, clean. Legos and similar such apparatus and toys, but not the same. Like I don't know if you ever had shop class when you were in high school. Did you take shop? Shop was the best,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, wood shop and plastics, and do they have that? Do they teach that anymore?
I think a lot of those programs got shut down a long time ago, 15, 20 years ago, in a lot of school districts. There no more shop. I don't even think there is shop class anymore. I could be wrong, but there's that, and even the cooking classes. I used to love cooking. That I think that's sort of been modified now, where it's not as freewheeling as it used to be. You used to be able to really experiment in those classes and have fun, but I think it's highly structured and controlled and more homogenized and less oh, provides less opportunities to do those sort of experiments and really play around with food and stuff.
Well, I told you I had a World War One vet, and I think he said about 1911, 1912. Uh, the neighborhood, the block on his neighborhood, they bought an automobile, and they would all take turns. They drove it around, and then they were like, "Let's take this thing apart and see how it runs." And then they would buy, and then they would buy another car, and then they would say, and then there were people that would assemble their own automobiles and like just try to put stuff together and stuff. They had, big garages, and you know, I remember I heard my grandfather would like, he worked a printing press, and he was always trying to work another printer, or, just work on different types of machinery and stuff like that, and even uh, build his own, computerized this or. And I remember my uncle was in all the stuff my uncle was in when he was in the Boy Scouts. They'd build model airplanes, or like uh, a little they'd have like go-kart races and stuff like that, and they'd build their own, and it's pretty cool. And I don't think that's around as much anymore. And you know, doing those types of activities are kind of lost, and it's kind of sad, you know. And we're teaching kids about critical race theory and all this other stuff, but they're not getting their hands in there and working with the kids on different types of projects and building things, getting them a tool belt and just hammering some nails in, and maybe building a go-kart or building a fort. That's something. Maybe me and you should go out, like out in the wilderness, build a fort, and have a little like water war or something like that. Just
Yeah. I
some.
had all those things. I had a fort. I built one go kart, but I had two or three go karts. Um, I was able to open up and mess around with my parents' car. They didn't care if I opened get under the hood and start looking around, and I knew neighbors. I knew a neighbor friend of mine built a kit car. Uh, it was unbelievable. I mean, he was old. He wasn't a kid. He was old. He was an older guy, but he built like a Pantera, some crazy car, um, and just did it right in his front yard. It took him like 4 or 5 years, and when that thing was ready to go, it was unbelievable. It was so fun. It was amazing. Um, there was tree houses. Every once in a while, you see a tree house, but it's not. You could tell it's not handmade type of thing. Where it's barely it's barely able to stay up in the tree. Stuff like that. Yeah, that stuff. Also, even say what you will about it, but I knew kids that would go around and do. They would build homemade bombs and throw it at people's doors with
Yeah,
that filled
yeah.
with shit, and just they explode all over their door. Yeah.
I remember we put some firecrackers in a beehive one time, man. Those things went nuts on us. And, dude, uh, did you ever have one of those Red Rider wagons?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Those things were those things were so unsafe, man.
Oh yeah.
And you take it down hills and stuff like that, and just
Just crash. Didn't matter.
oh yeah, man.
You didn't have pads. You just
Did you have pads? I didn't have any. No helmets, no nothing, man. And Maybe taking a river, like building your own raft and taking it out to a stream or something like that.
Now 16, 17-year-old, they don't even care about getting a license. It's like the last thing on their mind. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just interesting how things have changed. Young people just don't care about, they don't want to get that license, and I don't blame them.
Did you have a mini bike as a kid?
I had, I had all kinds. I had dirt bikes and stuff.
Motocross, and there was.
Later, I did in high school. I had an enduro motorcycle, and it was a street legal dirt bike, and I ran that all up and down the hills. One day, I crashed and walked it home, and I sold it like a few days later for $100. Basically, got my money back for it, and that was it. So I had it for a good year, and crashed it and got rid of it. Now you don't see any of that.
Yeah, I remember. We had a big backyard, and we used to build forts, and we'd have like big dirt fights and stuff. It was one of the fun. I remember one of the funnest times I ever had was we just went out and like we'd we'd play war out in the backyard, and we would fill up like Coke bottles and stuff filled with dirt, and like
Oh yeah.
just go at it, man, and
Oh yeah.
come back dusty and dirty. It was amazing, and it was like, yeah, it was a lot more fun than building stuff. Is build a canoe or build something. It's like learning all this other crap, man. The thing about togetherness is, and you bring people together is when you build shit, man. You have to, you know, maybe if people had to really survive and they had to build their own habitat, their own homes, they'd respect things more. And I think the more we get away from the building culture, I think the more we basically are into tearing shit down because we've never had to build it. These kids that rioted and burned things down, they don't have to build shit.
I don't know if that spirit is that it's leaving. I think it's an intentional, by design, situation where kids are um, having less exposure to that, and you see these big temples, and what was it, the Church of Notre Dame that burned down,
Yeah,
and Notre Dame, and there were all kinds of clues for, like, architectural clues, and um, basically the roadmaps to how these types of structures were built is embedded in the structure itself. It's not like a a fine set of blueprints like we have now for the crap that we build. These things were incredible, and so as they get torn down, I think it starts there with these amazing architectural designs that get burned down or torn down, but it does a lot. There's this whole trickle down through society, and I think the end uh, game there is that the young people don't have a freaking clue because there's nobody to hand down all of those amazing, um, whatever it is. I mean, it's practically alchemy, but I mean, it's just such a deep level of understanding of building that is totally erased from um, the global memory. So that plays a big part in it too. That's why I always hate it when I see these structures burned down. I think it's a lot more than just some freak accident or whatever. I think there's a whole agenda behind it.
do you know how long it took to build Notre Dame?
No, I do not.
182 years.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. I think Kings is listening. Kings of Talk is listening somewhere. He just messaged me. What's up, Kings? Dawning gives you a well wishes.
Well wishes to Dawning. But yeah, it took 182 years to build that cathedral. And there's some of these like Rome and like some of these uh, cathedrals and these palaces. They took hundreds of years to build, and the builders knew that they would never. The people who did some of the people that designed it knew that they would never be alive to see the building that they were creating, the structure that they were creating.
Not to send people away from this amazing broadcast, but there is a guy on YouTube who goes around and he's probably one of the best historians you'll find. Not necessarily in terms of what he knows about history, but how he's able to break down what he sees. And he goes to all of these old structures and looks at old maps. And his name's John Levy, and Levi. And he's just got some absolutely amazing videos. Highly recommended that you check him out. And he's looking for truth, and he's looking for technology that's built in to the architecture, and he just does a whole lot of really interesting research. It's really fantastic.
Well, like I said, I was never that good of a builder, but you know what? If I had it to do over again, man, I would, and I still like just going in with a hammer and nail and just working. It's good for you, even if you don't do it well. I think people should, if they got time to build something and have the opportunity, go do it, man. It's really worth your while, and to build and to see, you know, how good you can get, because that's how you get better. Anyway, Joe, is there anything to add? I think I'm going to end it now because I want to get myself to sleep. Is there anything to add before I call this show a day?
No, that is it for Transparency and Merit. I may do a late show. I may be feeling it. I don't know yet.
Well, yeah, and Donning says amazing what people do when they think they are working for other people,
Working
their
for
own
your
people,
own.
their own people. You know what? I'll have to think on that one. But I mean, a lot of these people were inspired by a higher power. They were inspired by, some of them were inspired by God, what they believed to be God. And it really pissed me off when a lot of the BLM supporters would say, "F your Notre Dame," because black people are being murdered. It was one of the most stupid things ever that I heard. And Master Rope is our biggest fan. Terrible show as usual. Thanks to Brian.
I wish I could take credit for making it not so terrible, but I think combined we made it extra terrible tonight.
Oh, we just brew up the worst.
We just
Anyway,
bored and bored, and then when they asked for us to stop, we kept boring them.
yes, absolutely. Hey guys, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and it's always good to hear from you. Hopefully, you can always strive to do better and work hard and get your sleep and exercise and practice a little bit of moderation. Moderation's always a good thing. And yeah. Anyway, yeah, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and visit our website at transparencyandmerit.com.